Hello again, this is Gretchen of Lighten Up and Thrive, and this is your second session of Thriving in the Midst of Change audio series. Last time, we focused on 3 steps that you could take to navigate through times of change. We hope you were able to recall other successful changes in your life, that you were able to go easy on yourself by understanding that change is awkward and that you were able to do something that made you feel in control. In today's session, I'm going to talk about how different personalities deal with change. Human behavior is a subject that's been studied in depth since the turn of the last century in particular. Psychologists have conducted a plethora of research about human behavior and have identified 4 basic personality types. You might even have had an assessment that categorized you as a combination of letters, such as the Myers-Briggs or the DISC profile. Some assessments even categorize the behaviors by referencing animals, colors, or even types of ice cream. Today, we're not going to discuss behavior assessments. What we will do is identify the basic 4 behavior types and how each type responds differently to change. We're simply using these categories as a tool to better understand how we cope with stress. The 4 types are the take charge type. The second is the people person. The third is the steady, calm person. And the 4th, the process and the procedure person. The first type of person has a strong tendency to be a take charge type and often is the instigator of change. They like to be in charge. They move at a fast pace. And they are the first ones to suggest that we change things around here. They adapt to change as long as they are in charge. If they're not in charge of the change, they will often resist the change, argue vehemently about it, and can be the last one to support it. The second types are very personable. We call them the people persons, that type of a persona. They tend to have a positive outlook on life and may not be as bothered by procedural changes. They tend to adapt to the world around them. These people are also fast-paced, but focus more on people than they do on processes. Their biggest concern is how the change is going to affect their relationships. Maintaining relationships is more important to these types than the impact of the change. Of course, as you can imagine, this type of person needs to talk about the change, discuss it with everyone they know, and then make sure that the change has a minimal impact on their relationships. When a relationship has to change, these people have the most difficulty. Now, all of us know someone who is a really steady type person. They love routine. They move through life more like a sailboat than a jet ski. Their biggest concern about change is how it is going to affect their routine. They need more time to adjust. The difficulty about steady people is that they often do not express their discomfort with change, so it's easy to believe that they have adjusted. If you are one of the steady types, then you need more time to process especially if it is significantly disruptive to your routines. If you are a steady person, you may feel more lost, vulnerable, and uncertain about change. You may even dig your heels in and be perceived as stubborn. And then the last type we'll talk about is the person who focuses on tasks and procedures. They like knowing what the rules are and will follow the policy and the procedures. They are sometimes described as the more serious type. They tend to collect data and arrive at a conclusion in a very systematic way. Sudden changes, especially if they are not supported by a rational thinking, are very difficult for this type. Their concern is how the change is going to impact them and then their tried and true way of doing things. This type of person will think about change in a more scientific way. They want it to make a really good sense and will want time to test the change before showing too much support for it. As we talked about these 4 types of people, I'm sure most of you thought, well, I'm a little bit like that style, and then, well, I'm a little bit like that other style also. Well, that's normal. The important lesson that I want you to learn today is that we have a natural way of dealing with change, and that style is different for all of us. What is difficult for one person to accept is easier than others. What may drive you to despair or panic may not bother another person at the same intensity. Therefore, you cannot measure your ability to cope with change against someone else's. Your ability to thrive will be different from someone else's. This week, pay attention to not just the change that you are going through, but how the change that others are going through impacts them. Resolve to be patient with yourself and with others as you navigate the course of change. Next time, I'll share with you 5 tips for moving through the transitional period of change. Until then, remember these words of Bruce Barton. When you are through changing, you are through. Until then, keep thriving. This is Gretchen.